screams in the shadow. A huge wolf emerged from nowhere, the ruff of black fur around her neck bushed out and her golden eyes searching the darkness. She scented the air, padding softly around the strange place she found herself in. The empty shell of gleaming thread looked like the silk cocoon a spider left for its prey, but it was somehow woven at right angles, forming a simple, hollow structure. The place smelled like old dirt, and loose threads hung from the ceiling and walls like wisps of rotting yarn from a decaying shawl. Half-formed things skittered into the corners, but by the time she stalked their movements, they were gone. She had circled the structure, ensuring it was not immediately dangerous, when she heard heavy boots thump to the ground where she'd come from. The footsteps were followed by muttered curses. The she-wolf padded back the way she'd come, a low, questioning growl in her chest. "I'm fine," Tucker said, turning his head and spitting. He was a big man in a long, ragged coat, with a well-traveled satchel over one shoulder, and a thick chain worn around his waist like a belt. His skin was so white his veins shone through it, and his hair was the no color of dust. His eyes were a blue so pale it was nearly impossible to see, unless one drew close enough to kiss him. Ashfoot didn't get that close to him, but she wanted to be sure he was safe. He petted her neck affectionately and gave her a smile. His teeth were a little too sharp, but other than that, Tucker held on to his man shape admirably well. The two of them stepped back and waited. A minute went by, and then a second. Tucker's forehead was starting to dip into a worried crease when another joined them. Long and lean, with powerful shoulders and an old-fashioned hat tugged low on his forehead, the newcomer wore a crisp suit and a wicked grin that turned up the corners of his mouth. He had a bandolier of shotgun shells draped over one shoulder. Most of the rounds were unremarkable, but something seemed to be shifting and skittering inside several of them. Something far deadlier than steel bearings that was eager to be released. "You're late," Tucker said. "Fashionably so," Nikki D'Angelo replied, brushing a bit of imaginary dust from one forearm. He hefted the old-fashioned trench gun he'd brought, a fetish weapon that had seen service for decades in his family, and rested it on one shoulder. "Did something happen the two of you couldn't handle?" Ashfoot chuffed and glanced up at Tucker. The Theurge shook his head, turning his steps toward the door of the woven structure. "We're running out of time. We don't want to be here when the sun comes up. Or, rather, when the moon goes down." Nikki, known as Sharp-Dressed Man within his tribe, glanced down at Ashfoot. She was already moving, padding after Tucker. Nikki frowned, rolling the toothpick he'd been chewing from one side of his mouth to the other. He tugged his hat a little lower on his brow, adjusted his grip on his weapon, and followed the other two outside. For all his posturing and preening, Nikki's eyes were sharp, and his hands were steady on his gun. Outside the spirit world's memory of the old gas station where they'd crossed the gauntlet, the world was made of rolling hills and thick foliage. A heavy silver moon hung in the black silk sky, staring down at the world of swirling shadows and stirring memories. Everything seemed quiet at first, but as the breeze died, a strident sound clawed at the still air. It was discordant and terrible, setting all their teeth on edge. "The hell is that noise?" Nikki asked, digging in his ear with his pinky finger. "It's where we're going," Tucker said. The albino tilted his head back and scented the air. He touched a finger to his tongue, then held it up and nodded. "Come on, let's make this fast." The three of them took off into the woods, with Tucker in the lead, and Ashfoot darting in and out of the shadows as she sought threats in the underbrush. At first, they passed dozens of nature spirits, their half-seen bodies flickering in and out of sight. But as they traveled, they saw fewer and fewer of them. The trees grew twisted, and the lush grass grew thin and saw-toothed, as if it had tried to grow from a poisoned well. And all the while that sound grew louder and louder, until it felt like it was digging its claws into their ears, trying to scream its nonsense message directly into their brains. As they emerged from the thicket of seared trees and bushes, they saw where that terrible sound was coming from. A tower of twisted, cancerous bone tore from the ground, rising high into the air. A glowing red eye topped the tower, slowly rotating as it stared unblinkingly out, casting beams of crimson light across the countryside. Beneath the three-lobed burning eye, 4 metal maws blared, the hateful siren shouting the endless stream of horrible noise into the night. Nikki flinched, gritting his teeth as he stared up at the awful sight. Ashfoot's hackles were up, and a low growl rumbled from her chest. Tucker was stone-faced, but there was a coldness in his eyes neither of the other two had seen before. "The hell is that?" Nikki asked. "WKQR, Tucker said. He reached under his coat and produced a huge, oversized revolver. He rolled out the cylinder, carefully examining the Talon bullets he'd loaded. "Your daily dose of hate, flooding the airwaves since Reagan got rid of the Fairness Doctrine." "There aren't any spiderwebs on it," Nikki remarked, frowning as he stared at the awful structure. "I thought buildings and shit were made by pattern spiders." "They are," Tucker said. He shifted the order of his cylinder slightly, then slid it shut again. "This place, it's something else." Thank you for staying to the end of this story. Screams in the Shadow is the introductory fiction to the supplement Dark Reflections, 50 Sights to See in the Penumbra for Werewolf the Apocalypse. This is my first time coming back to the world of darkness in some time, but hopefully it won't be the last. If you enjoyed this story, consider picking up the supplement at the link in the video description below. Stay tuned and subscribe to the channel to see what comes next.